We fans often hail actors or actresses, directors, cinematographers, producers, but very seldom we hail a writer. Today I want to praise a writer. Sometimes a line spoken in a show or movie is so strong it stays with you for a while. Sometimes one line can bring a production to its essence. Not very often a line of dialogue does both. Jack Schaefer, head of the writing team of Wandavision, moved me to tears last Friday with pure poetry. But what is grief if not love persevering? Words matter. Hello and welcome to the Review of Champions. Today we're going to talk about episode 8 of Wandavision, currently streaming on Disney+. Before we begin, I would like to invite all who are listening in or watching us to join our community. Go to our forum on Sakar, make an account, chat us up, and if you're willing, you can be on the podcast or review yourself. We are open to anyone, and we would love to see you there. Well, let me introduce today's panel. With me are R.R. Stanton.
Hello.
Mr. Lord Deafman.
Hey, everyone.
And Mr. Taylor First.
Hello.
Yeah. Hi. I hope you guys are doing okay. Episode 8 of WandaVision shows us how Agatha takes Wanda on a tour of Wanda's past. And we're going to take a deeper dive into that episode, and we're going to talk spoilers. So if you haven't seen the episode, go do that first and then come back to watch our review. With that being said, I would like to give the word to our first panel member. We're going to take it easy this week. No specific questions. Lord Deafman, what did you think about the episode?
I really enjoyed the episode. I thought the previous episode was a little bit of a dip in terms of parts of it being a little bit predictable and just having to sort through some business that you kind of knew was coming. You had to show that origin for Monica, and there was a kind of feeling that this episode had a few obligatory things to get through. But this episode takes us right back up to peak WandaVision without really missing a beat. So I really love the acting. I think everyone is still bringing their A game, whether it's Paul Bettany or Lizzie Olsen or excuse me, or anyone on the show, frankly. So the production values and the overall quality are great for the show, and I'm still enjoying it a lot. Even though I find myself not being overly surprised by what happens on the show. And that's probably because of a steady diet of fan speculation and theories going on. But it's still it's just still incredible to watch the world unfold and to go on with, sort of a deep dive into the lives of these characters that are kind of secondary in the movies. So, I think that there's a lot to unpack in this episode where everybody I've seen on social or talked about in my social circle feels like, oh, this was an obligatory sort of flashback. We had to do it. I got a lot out of it. I think some really big reveals came out of this, and not necessarily having to do with the characters, but the concept of magic, right, is now really a thing in the MCU. It's not connected to science. We kind of got these half explanations for what it was like in Thor, and then when Doctor Strange came around, we expanded on it a little bit. But this is the episode or the moment in the MCU where I feel like we have magic as a first-class citizen, not really tied particularly to science, right? So, magic, a great comic book writer once wrote that magic kind of in the universe is like this old error code that was at the beginning of the universe where whoever made what was going on in reality said, this would be a neat way for people to perceive and control the reality around them. Magic. But then he let everybody have it, and it probably turned into pure chaos. And he was like, okay, bad idea. I'm going to bury this error code deep in the source, and everyone will just have to experience reality as it unfolds. But some people who know how to hack later on in the lifespan of the universe say, that magic stuff's kind of interesting. I'm glad they left it, as an Easter egg in the universe's code. But in any event, that was a big deal for me. And the whole idea of it opens up a whole lot of questions about Wanda. One, what is Wanda? Is she a mutant? Is she a Nexus being? Is she a magic practitioner? Is she somehow all of these things? They've got a lot of explaining to do here with regards to that. And I'm really excited to hear the answers, right? There seems to be rules around how magic works, the runes, the way Agatha sort of explained it. You can't use your magic because I have these runes in place that make only my magic work. I think they're easily setting the stage for Doctor Strange to be a part of this conversation. And, I see as we're getting to the end, a lot of the fan speculation around Mephisto and Nightmare sort of drying up. Those theories are sort of going the way of the dodo bird in terms of fan theories that are withering. Speaking of things that are withering on the vine, per Agatha, a lot of those theories are finding their way into the trash bin of speculation. So, the fans are like, oh, yeah, you're probably not going to get a Nightmare. You're probably not going to get a Mephisto. But I don't know. Agatha's a middle tier villain, if she's a villain at all. I don't see her going to Doctor Strange, and becoming the villain of, in the multiverse of madness. So I still think that there's a sponsor behind her activities and some of her motivations, or it's kind of layered in that she noticed what Wanda was doing when she created the Westview Hex, and then someone else above Agatha said, you know what, this is fairly interesting. So we don't know if that rabbit, might turn out to be somebody in the Marvel cosmology that's less human and more interested in things from a perspective of purely acquiring the power of the Scarlet Witch. So a fantastic episode. It sets up a whole new mythology for the Scarlet Witch, which is a character that has a lot of mythology around her already, but turning the Scarlet Witch into sort of like a construct or a mantle or some kind of mythical being, as Agatha referred to her. All very exciting stuff for us who are like more on the side of being fans of the world building in the MCU and not necessarily about like how you move the action figures around in the space and clank them against each other. So I thought it was a great episode. I don't know how they're going to top it with the finale, but I'm definitely going to be tuned in.
Yeah, me too. If it was DC, the rabbit could be Captain Carrot, but it's not DC, luckily. Arch, I'm going to you now. What did you think?
I absolutely love this episode. I thought it was fantastic. The way they wove in the entire flashback to things from the ancient past to things we've seen much more recently and little events she's had in other films. I thought it was great. I thought it was wonderful. I'll just say right off before I discuss it in any more detail, I'm not even going to guess about the final episode. I've done a lot more speculation with this series than I usually do with these types of things. I just thought it was fun, but key point is I don't ever get married to my speculations, so I just love what they did here, and I don't care what they do in episode 9 because it's just going to be awesome. I could feel it. But this episode had me from the word go, man. Doing the flashback, you all know how I love MCU lore, and when they go back to things that like Hank Pym has done in the past, or Captain Marvel, anything that they can get into that's happened in the ancient past to kind of lay out this deeper history in the Marvel universe is pure gold to me. So I loved watching Agatha in that little witch's circle. I've got a lot of questions about it, but I just liked seeing it and getting into that history. And then everything else, man, from seeing Wanda, like how she had that little moment with Vision, and in the time of Civil War, where you see more of how they bonded. It wasn't just the dinner scene that they had, but you see this little backstage scene of her and Vision really having this bonding moment together. I thought that was really beautiful. The later as you move through the episode and you got into present day and you saw what she did at Sword headquarters, I thought they shot that scene so brilliantly because we'd already established that she stole Vision. So this entire sequence, you're just waiting for the moment where she steals Vision. Like she walks in and she's just at the desk, the welcome desk, and you're like, wait, is she gonna attack this guy? She's just gonna break in? And no, she just goes to the door. You're like, all right, she gets into to Tyler's office. You're like, all right, she's gonna do it now. She's gonna like take him out. And she's gonna go down and steal it. Nope. He just lets her see it. And then she smashes the glass, and you're like, "This is it. This is it." No. She just checks it out. Everything's okay. And then she walks out, and she leaves, and then all of a sudden you realize that, oh, Tyler lied about this the entire time. So I thought it was a great sequence that really kind of set itself up well, and it makes me wonder what Tyler's really up to. I know we got a little reveal at the end about what he's up to, but what his ultimate goal is, I'm not really sure yet. And again, I don't even want to guess. But what the point that really got me this episode, that had me in like kind of awe, tearing up moment, was when you realize that the home she's been living in this entire show was the unbuilt dream home of her and Vision. Like, you realize she pulls up to this unfinished foundation, and I immediately realized that they were building this home for themselves and she lost it. And that's what caused her to completely break. And that is just like, that is better than anything I could have ever dreamed up. So I give them full on credit for writing and coming up with a scenario that's just, it's just magically good. It's just really, 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 really good. And I've got some other things to say eventually, but I'll let Taylor chime in here. I just love I'll just add one more thing, that I love the very end where she gets her namesake, and that was just an awesome moment of throwing out, and you must be the Scarlet Witch. So, bam, good stuff, good ending, great stuff.
Yeah, it really was. Taylor, you can go right ahead.
My takeaways. The people in the commercial are not their parents, so throw that theory out the window. I got tired of hearing that one, frankly. Other takeaway.
The dust.
Where is Wanda's father? Because I want to buy that suitcase full of DVDs that he's trying to sell there, okay? Everybody saw what was in there, right? Mm-hmm. I Love Lucy, Bewitched, Malcolm in the Middle, The Addams Family, I Dream of Jeannie, and Who's the Boss were all in there. And of course, they had the entire collection of Dick Van Dyke in the special place. So obviously that, found out that was her favorite, which makes sense because the first house that she created was patterned on the Dick Van Dyke house. And then it just kind of spiraled from there. So great nods to all of those TV shows there, having that suitcase. What is Wanda? Wanda's a witch. We know this now. She is a witch. What happens when a witch touches an Infinity Stone? She gets amped up to 11. That's what we know now. Right. It was always a question: how did Wanda and her brother survive contact with an Infinity Stone? This has been a question from the end of Captain America: Winter Soldier. It was even mentioned in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. at one point. They mentioned the twins who had the best reaction to the Infinity Stone of any of the test subjects in Hydra. So now we know that answer. We know a lot about Agatha Harkness. We know that her goal is to get Wanda's power, or to get the same powers as Wanda has, which means we know she does not have as much power as Wanda, but she's using her brains and her guile and her experience, her hundreds of years of experience, to trick Wanda and outsmart her and get her powers from her somehow. We know the whole backstory now of what led to Wanda breaking down and creating this fantasy world, which is what it is. She had a mental breakdown and she was living in a delusion. And at times, the things challenged the delusion, and she would come out of it a little bit, but she didn't want to come out of it because she was living in her mind, her dream at that time. So all in all, just an incredible episode. And I agree 100% with what Art said about finally we heard the words Scarlet Witch. I literally cheered at the TV when they finally said Scarlet Witch, because personally, you all know that I think the MCU is like the greatest invention ever. But I really wish they would use their superhero names more often. I wish they would use them the way fighter pilots use their call signs, as names all the time. That would be how they should talk to each other. But no, we're always hearing Steve and Tony and, Clint. We're always hearing these names all the time instead of hearing their superhero names. So I want to see newspaper headlines calling her the Scarlet Witch from now on, or have her call herself the Scarlet Witch just once. But, incredible episode. I have no idea what's going to happen next. All I know is we've got Monica and Vision and Darcy are all inside the hex. The director and his white Vision are outside the hex, who are going to try to come into the hex. It'd be funny if the white Vision goes in and turns into a clown. That would kind of take the air out of the balloon, wouldn't it? But I think the white Vision's not going to turn into a clown. But I have no idea what's going to happen. We know who's inside. We know who's outside trying to get in. As far as the director's goals are, I think at this point, and again, it could all change. At this point, I think it's pretty straightforward. I think he's scared to death of people like Thanos and Ultron and other global threats that are out there, and he wants the same level of weaponry that they have. He doesn't want to have to rely on the Avengers to come and save the world all the time, because he's afraid that might not happen, and he's willing to go to great lengths and underhanded tactics as need be to get there.
Yeah, that sounds about right. What you said about Tyler Hayward, I think also the snap, the failure of the Avengers adds to that. I think he already referenced to that a little bit earlier in the show as well. I thought this was by far the best episode of the lot. I want to talk about Elizabeth Olsen. She is amazing. Her acting is some of the best I've ever seen in this show. She has a full range from comedic in the sitcom episodes to very emotional to angry. She is absolutely amazing, and if she doesn't get an Emmy for this show, I will riot. It's so good. Overall, the show I think is one of the best TV shows I've ever seen. We have because of all the speculation that's going on, and the Marvel fandom is of course I think one of the biggest at the moment, and everybody is talking about everything. Like 5 minutes after the episode has aired in the world, so you get all the theories, but. I think it's still amazing, and when I saw the White Vision at the end, I cheered. I absolutely loved it, and I think the Vision Wanda created and the White Vision, there's a reason. I think this is the way they bring Vision back into the MCU after his demise in Infinity War. Agatha, I think Catherine Hahn is also at a top level when it comes to acting. I read some people saying it's over the top what she's done, but no, I think it's absolutely amazing. She is funny and scary at the same time, and what has she done that's really villainous in this show until now? Yeah, she kept the kids, but she just wanted to figure out what's going on with Wanda. But I really haven't seen anything besides the last maybe 10 seconds where she holds the kids. Really villainous action from Agatha. So I'm not too sure she is the villain of the show. We will have to see what happens in the last episode. You have, of course, still the thing that Pietro has or fake Pietro she called him, right? With Monica. Yeah, that's. We don't know what's going on there. We have Jimmy Woo still on the outside. Maybe he will get an aerospace engineer who built the thing after all into this. You don't know. There's still a lot to unpack the next episode. I don't want to speculate too much because I have no clue what they're going to do. But I'm really looking forward to next Friday, and it's going to be a long week, Ben. I think Arch raises hand first. Arch, you have something to say.
Oh yeah, just real quickly about speculation. I always just caution people, just especially as you're heading into a final episode of a show. Speculation is fun, but don't get carried away. I've seen a lot of people saying we must get an answer to who Jimmy Woo was chasing, or we must get an answer to if somebody was behind, Agatha, or we must get an answer to this or that. And we don't. I just don't worry about it. Just let it happen, and they'll take care of what needs to be taken care of. Most of the stuff, some of these things like who Jimmy Woo was chasing, may not even be relevant. So just relax on what has to be done or what needs to be done, and I'm sure it'll work out fine. They've done a fantastic job here. So I, for one, am just going in 100%. That being said, there's a ton of questions here I can't wait to get to. Like, is there something more that Agatha wants other than Wanda's power? It does seem like that's what she's going after. I don't know. I don't want to speculate too much, but it seems like siphoning power is what she was doing in that opening bit. But it makes me wonder, is there more to how she got her powers? I don't know, but I'm curious about that. Or makes me wonder what if there's more to the kids. Makes me wonder what the book was doing in her basement. If there's something more to that, so there's a lot of stuff they could play with here, and I'm interested to see where they go with it. So that's all I'll say in terms of speculation.
Well, knowing Marvel Studios, we will get a lot of answers. Maybe not next week in the episode that follows, but later on into the MCU. I mean, how often haven't we seen it that they all of a sudden come back to something we've seen before, and then we say, "Oh yeah, oh yeah." I mean, it's. I'm not worried. We won't get answers. It's just a matter of when we will get them. But
how different is watching Age of Ultron now? How different is watching Age of Ultron now?
Yeah. By the way, I'm coming back to my opening. How jealous have the other actors got to be on Paul Bettany as Vision, because he gets to say the best things. I mean, his lines in Age of Ultron and Civil War were one of the best, and now you get to WandaVision, and he also has the best lines ever. Taylor, you raise your hands also.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention the creation of Vision. Once after we found out she didn't take the parts, we were all thinking, where did he come from? And we actually got to see it. And not only was it a brilliant effect, it was just a brilliant moment that it literally came out of her mind and built him, I don't know what the magic term is, it transmogrified out of thin air Vision bit by bit, which I thought was pretty impressive and pretty spectacular. And of course, as you mentioned, Elizabeth's acting in that scene where she just broke down and her grief just took over, and it created the house, the Vision, and the whole town around her. It was a great moment, and it sort of reminded me of the moment, which one of my favorite moments from Age of Ultron, when she feels Pietro die, and she drops to her knees, and she lets out a huge wave of energy that takes out a whole bunch of robots. Just brilliant stuff. Oh, and as far as Agatha being over the top, comic book supervillain. There's no such thing as over the top.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, the heart on the calendar that came directly from the ownership papers from Vision. There was also heart on it, so that was a nice catch. Lord Deathman, you had something to say?
I did. I just wanted to add a little bit about magic overall in this episode, which I keep coming back to as just something that's totally cool to have sort of a stamped as like, oh yeah, okay, we're doing this now. Which it really, if you think about the ramifications of it, and Monica coming back and forth through this magically created barrier, it's really different than the science-based explanation for Monica's powers in the comic books. Monica is now a being that was created through magic, and I think that puts a totally different spin on what her power set could be like. I'm not really expecting what we get in the comic books from Photon or any of the many Spectrum or any of the many code names she's had, which are basically to convert herself into all forms of energy across the electromagnetic spectrum. We could see something totally different, and I'm kind of liking the idea that even I, as a comic book reader who's fairly familiar with the source, is going to be surprised as well. So yeah, and everyone pulls at different threads, I think, as a fan when you sort of watch this, and I went in for certain details that might seem a bit esoteric or weird, but I noticed at the beginning of the episode that Agatha's trial takes place in 1693. Well, there is a semi-famous Marvel run of sort of multiverse stories that take place in 1602. Where a lot of modern superheroes are sort of rendered in the 17th century. Neil Gaiman is the architect of that particular series, if anyone wants to check it out. It would be totally cool to see some of those throwback 17th century versions of popular characters like Iron Man and Captain America in Doctor Strange when we take a full-on trip to the multiverse. Another thing that caught my attention was when Taylor's sort of talking to Wanda about his legal right to the Vision's body. I was like, wow, that's a stretch, right? Like, what legal right did they have to a being that was actually built collaboratively by the Avengers and is probably owned by Tony Stark with regards to the proprietary sort of history of Jarvis and Ultron and Vision as a separate being. So kind of wondering how the government and SWORD are making that claim. It seems a little dicey to me.
I think the Sokovia Accords.
Does that give them the right to sentient weapons?
Well, basically they control the Avengers. So if and Vision is an Avenger, basically he was part of the Avengers complex. I don't know how the rights of sentient beings are preserved in the cinematic universe, but yeah, a case could be made, and I'm going Bruce Maddox here, that he was actually a tool used by the Avengers, and since the Avengers are controlled by the government, he's government property. Thus, SWORD has that claim. It is a bit of a stretch, I agree, but you can.
Well, no, I think you've got a legal foundation, but whereas you'll take the sort of Maddox Riker argument on this, I'm definitely taking Picard's point of view, and if the SWORD has this type of provision in it, that's nothing short of slavery. The Vision is a sentient being. The Accords allow for control over the use and deployment of the Avengers, but it doesn't make the government like the owners of the Avengers. That would just be a weird thing to argue. But
of course, anyway, because Vision is in his essence also a machine.
He is.
But then we get really philosophical.
and if we want to go deeper, I really do think that I don't think that the Scarlet Witch made a facsimile of Vision. I think she was somehow able to reconstitute his consciousness, and that's why they made that very intentional choice to show the energy as yellow when it sort of spins off from her in that super great scene. That was worthy of the movies, by the way. but I think she actually brought back what we would consider the conscious portion of the being that was the Vision, and Taylor controls the physical vibranium part and the mechanical aspects of that being. And I think if I were to speculate, if I was a speculating man, I would say that we might see some fusion between the consciousness and the machine and the white sort of anti-vision. I've never liked the name White Vision, so I always go with Spectral Vision. But whatever you want to call him, those two might be unified in order to bring back the Vision as we know him.
Yeah, that was actually what I was thinking too. Before I have something about colors anyway, but Taylor, you first.
Yeah, arguably he was a sentient being. In fact, I think that's beyond argument. He was a sentient being. However, now he's a dead sentient being. His mind, his soul is gone. What's left is a powerful, powerful weapon. And the first two letters in SWORD are sentient weapons. And I don't even remember what the other three, but obviously their legal reason for being is to control sentient weapons and prevent them from falling into the wrong hands. So I'm assuming that's somewhere in their legal authority.
Yeah, they're the department that the government would appoint. I want to say something about the color of magic. I saw in the beginning, you saw the Witchers were beaming into Agatha, and the magic they used was colorized blue. And then Agatha took over; it became purple. That's basically the Scarlet Witch, of course, has red kind of magic. I assume that's the kind of magic in the Marvel universe that is chaos magic. And of course, Doctor Strange uses mostly yellow type magic. So I think there's something going on with the color scheme. I don't know if it's you can see the different kind of magics. I don't know which one is more powerful than the other, but that's how they visualize that there are different kinds of magic being used. They use the colors for that. I thought it was really well done. Lord Deathman, you still had something?
I did. I just wanted to make a quick observation about, am I wrong in that Vision actually left some type of a power of attorney with regards to, did I make that up, or did that actually happen?
No. I thought it was mentioned that
Living Will was mentioned.
Right. He did sort of make it clear that he didn't want himself to be used as a weapon after he was over. But again, I think the argument that even backed by the Accords, I think the argument that SWORD could make to lay claim to him is just one of force and nothing else. I'm going to stand firm on that. And I also wanted to bring up one last detail about it's such a great episode, by the way. So much to tease out. And I really hope that in the finale, we don't really get all the answers so that we can jump off into the movies and sort of get some of those answers there. But that being said, I kind of have to do this quick PSA. The Disney Plus series have established themselves as being totally pivotal to the MCU. They're not side projects. I don't think of them as things that you can just ignore or dive into or dive out, although everyone's free to do whatever you want. But my PSA is this, right? If you have chosen not to interact with the Disney Plus content, if you are making the conscious choice to say, hey, I don't want to pay subscription dollars to find out about these little corners of the universe, that is totally your right. But I want to let those people know that you should not be asking the rest of us what's going on because you don't want to pay the $7-8 a month. A public service announcement from Lord Deathman.
Yeah, I have no clue what you're referring to. Arch.
I know what he was referring to. Never mind. All right, so
Squid.
I still describe the shows as subscribing to a series. So you might subscribe to the Captain America series, and you'd get 12 issues for the whole year. And if you don't want to do that, you can just read what happens to him in the Civil War crossover. But the shows to me are if you want to find out what's really going on, and I think they're equally important. I put them on the same level. But what I was going to get to, kind of related to your color scheme. I heard a couple of ideas about that. Purple, they relate to the Power Stone. I'm not leaning towards that one, but there was also an idea I heard that the Dark Dimension featured some purple magic. I'm not going to speculate on any of that. It could be something entirely different, but those were some ideas I saw floating around. The thing I really wanted to get to, though, that I think has to be mentioned about this particular episode was at the beginning, when you've got in Salem, when you've got the Witch's Circle, Agatha's mother appears to have this sort of crown of energy above her head. I don't know if you guys had seen that, but it seemed oddly purposeful to me. They flashed away from her back to Agatha and then back to her mom, and you could really clearly see this crown of energy on her head. I don't know what that is. I don't want to guess. It made me wonder, especially when you saw that little clip where Wanda picks up the Mind Stone or interacts with the Mind Stone, and you saw that faded vision of the Scarlet Witch. The first time we've seen that in the back, and you saw the crown she was wearing. It connected that in my mind. I'm not saying it's the same thing, but it just, I linked the two conceptually a little bit there. But I'm saying all that to lead towards the idea that I loved the way Agatha announces her as the Scarlet Witch, where she said, "And that makes you the Scarlet Witch." She was talking about her being a myth and a legend. So I'm one of the big questions I wonder, and I don't know if they're going to answer it or not, but I'm wondering what that means. Like, what is the Scarlet Witch? Have they been anticipating that somebody with this level of power would come about? Has this idea of a Scarlet Witch been around for a long time, and it's something Agatha was aware of as a possibility? I don't know, but those bits made me really, really, really curious when I was watching this episode.
Yeah, I think a Scarlet Witch, you said, and not the Scarlet Witch, I think, but it's a chaos magic wielding witch, which probably are rare. Coming back to what Lord Deathman said earlier in his opening statement.
I haven't seen one in a long time, so yeah, they must be pretty rare.
Yeah, so I think that's what they are referring to. Lord Deathman.
Yeah, I think following up on what Stanton said about the crown, really good observation there, because I also noticed the crown on the second viewing of that episode. And I thought, wow, it's really shaped in the way that the Scarlet Witch's headpiece is traditionally drawn in the comic books. It's a different color and it was a little flowy, but it's almost like these two horns that are going up. And I think that essentially just indicates that a witch is sort of more powerful than other witches of her class, and they might be introducing sort of a spectrum of witches, which would make Agatha's mother of a certain class certainly not a Scarlet Witch, but a Lavender Witch, if you will, or whatever have you. But it sounds like you might get different classifications of witches according to colors, and the colors might say something about what type of magic practitioner you are, whether you're a dark magic practitioner and you get the purple and black sort of colors. I think the Scarlet piece certainly speaks to Wanda's emotion, right? That a lot of the huge manifestations of her magic come from her emotional sources. So unfortunately, Marvel might be beating DC to the punch with a concept again, in that amongst the Green Lantern Corps, there is an emotional spectrum that revolves around different kinds of colors, and we might get it with the witches of the Marvel Universe. But that's half of a joke. But I think that they might be going in that type of direction in terms of creating a hierarchy of beings that are known as witches.
Yeah. Taylor?
Yes, I'll make one prediction. In Phase 7 of the MCU, there will be a team-up movie of the Rainbow Witches of all different colors will get together and fight crime.
That's funny. Well, I'm there opening weekend. If it's not a Disney Plus show, of course. Well, I think we unpacked everything we could unpack about this episode. And that brings our review for episode 8 to a close. Before we finish, I would like to ask you to hit that subscribe button and notification bell on YouTube, or follow us on Twitter or Instagram. Like our Facebook page, join the forum on Sakar. That way you will never miss us and we won't have to miss you. Thank you, and see you next week for our review of the show's finale. Bye.